This is The Extra Point, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast, sponsored by your Phoenix Suns.
And let's talk Phoenix Suns with Nick King, freshly off the golf course on Sunday, crushing it post-game at the WM Phoenix Open. And Sun Devil Joe behind the glass here, watching the Warriors as we speak, talking NBA trade deadline. He's punching the buttons today. He's multitasking, so he's in charge of our... Yes, but we had a very interesting day. You and I were both on site at the 5G Performance Center, and Kevin Durant tried to, I'd say he tried to clear the air post-trade deadline. KD has not played in 3 games. We haven't really heard from him since there were all sorts of talk that he would be moved. He wasn't moved. What were your takeaways? Did KD clear the air today as we talk this Monday, February the 10th?
Yeah, I think so. I was driving there hoping it was going to be KD talking today, knowing he hadn't talked all weekend since the reporting that he had been blindsided by the fact that the Suns were reportedly attempting to move him and send him to the Warriors or maybe even the Heat. And he's always a fascinating guy, and he's pretty forthright. I think my takeaway is that KD, yes, was not thrilled about this whole thing, to not know. And so we're going to play some of the sound bites from him. The thing that just jumped out to me was that he gave a couple of answers that stayed pretty close to, I understand the business. I've been in the game for a long time. We all know how it goes, yada, yada, yada. Then there was a question that was starting to be asked that was along the lines of, you've been through this before. And he go, oh, okay, no. He's like, I haven't been through this before. Basically, like, I understand this. I've wanted out before. I've asked out places. I haven't been. My bosses haven't tried to trade me behind my back or even thought about trading me behind my back before.
Yeah, and that's interesting because why is it okay for a player to ask out, but an organization can't do what's best for the organization? And he said organizations have to. This is a business. You get it. But it's a double-edged sword, like he says. And I mean, I don't have a problem with, if Nick King can fetch us, 5 other assets for our sports department and he gets a chance to go play for a championship. I'm okay with that.
I'd like to be in the loop on it, though.
Yeah. Would you? Yeah. If it was... Okay.
Have I earned that, though? Obviously, no, not compared to Kevin Durant.
Yeah. But
it's hard to do business if you keep everyone in the loop, too.
Right,
that's another double-edged sword.
I'm not saying we trade Nick King. I'm just saying he could probably fetch a high price. Sun Devil Joe is behind the glass. 1, I meant to ask, are we recording this? Did we go to... Okay, we are. And 2, your reaction to KD not going to your beloved Golden State Warriors.
At first, I was kind of weirded out. Like, why wouldn't you want to come back? But obviously, he left in some turmoil, and there's some other things. And then once the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, you start reading a little bit more about Jimmy and how he fits perfectly with Golden State. And then 1 game in, championship back parades coming back to San Francisco. Probably 3 of them.
Y'all beat the Bulls.
3.
I mean, let's not. And Giannis isn't playing tonight. What's the score, by the way?
16-14 Milwaukee.
Oh, man. Big comeback here. We thought this thing was over at 11-7.
Not parades, but just a chance to fight for a playoff spot and get Steph towards the lighter part of end of his career to play meaningful games.
Yeah, 1 more trip up the mountain with playoff Jimmy. It's actually, I think it's a genius strategy. We'll see if it works. Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. It's just
insane. Like, it felt like that there was no other ending for Jimmy Butler other than coming to Phoenix.
He dyed his hair, for crying out loud.
And then it's the team that's even older than the Suns. And, I don't know, around them, right behind them in the standings that actually ends up with him.
Right. Yep.
Wild.
Yep. We can't have it's never easy here in the Valley of Sports. All right, Joe, you want to go in order here because we want to play the sound from Durant today and react from it. So first soundbite was he mentioned it was a business a number of times. You can be traded, kind of like we talked about. But he talked about his contract, and we have thought for so long that he wanted an extension, which Jimmy Butler got in Golden State. Here's what he had to say about a contract extension and how he will proceed going forward.
No, I always had a goal of just playing my contract out and seeing what happens. I can't focus on a year and a half down the line. I try to focus on the day ahead of me, and I know that'll be a topic. That's probably the most frustrating part about being in trade talks is that the microscope won't be on solely just me the rest of the season. And my body language, how I speak to you guys after the games, how I'm looking on the bench, that stuff would be magnified, which sucks. But like I said, that's a part of the business I got to just deal with and accept. But if I keep the main thing, then that could be the main focus. If we turn around and play well, people focus on that.
Very true. The body language thing. I mean, you followed up on it. It's going to be under the microscope.
He's so right about all of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, we've done this. We've done it. We like looking at Katie's at his body language because he's not always the most cheery guy, and a lot of times you can read him pretty easily, or at least we think we can. I will say that this year I haven't seen it nearly as much from him as I thought I did last year. But again, that's just speaking to his point that people are going to pay attention to that stuff.
Well, it's the same thing with Kyler Murray. How much have we dissected his body language and how much the leader of the team, if the leader of the team looks grumpy, how much does that negativity, I mean, it spreads like a virus. Steve Nash used to make a point of touching everybody. Everybody gets 5. Everybody gets a slap on the back because there's something to human touch, human interaction, eye contact. I love you. I got you. Let's go do this. And when the leader is not projecting that, there's a thought that it trickles down. You think it trickles down? Yeah,
and he's also right that none of that stuff gets looked at as closely when you're winning games.
Right, yeah.
So whether it's the Cardinals or the Suns, it's when they're not playing well that we're noticing it. And you do wish in those moments that your leaders are handling it a little bit differently. But maybe all of that is like beside the point of he just wants to play out this current contract and see what happens. Maybe that's just because, boy, this sure hasn't gone as smoothly in Phoenix as I thought it would.
No, not at all. I mean, it's amazing that you add the sum of the parts don't equal the whole. You add talent, but you subtract the glue. And I don't know that it can be fixed. Maybe the pressure's off now and they can make a little run here, but that might be wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Joe, as far as body language goes for KD in Golden State, was it ever an issue?
Not until the final year when clearly something happened, and it was the Clipper game when Draymond yelled at KD on the bench in front of everyone, and then KD didn't feel as if the team responded properly in terms of they'd suspended Draymond the game, but they never addressed in front of the whole team what went down, and KD felt disrespected that this happened in front of the team. It should have happened. The apology should have happened in front of the team, and everything just kind of deteriorated after that with him.
I wonder how much a reunion with Draymond was an issue there. I mean, we'll probably never know. That clearly was an uncomfortable locker room, but there were also reports the Suns had a toxic locker room. That's from Ramona Shelburne, from ESPN. So KD had a chance to ask him today, what's your locker room really like? And he was able to, go on. He was waiting for this question, it seemed like. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, I heard Ramona Shelburne come out and say our locker room is toxic. And I try to tell people who's not around this game as much, is that it's easy to say our locker room is not connected when you come in there 45 minutes before and guys are in their game modes. We're not talking to each other. 4 or 5 guys might be in the training room. A few guys might be in the weight room. It's not a welcoming environment right before the game. You know what I'm saying? And that's just part of getting ready to play, So I think it's unfair and lazy to categorize our team as toxic when you come in there for 5 minutes throughout 4 months. That's the only time you've been in our locker room. Then you can make a narrative. I don't think that's fair to us, but like I said, that's part of the game. That's part of the business we signed up for. Shit's not fair in this game, but we got to deal with it and accept it.
I mean, it's true. I've never thought pregame you ever find any information unless you want to get something clarified, having done that for years. Postgame is when you can tell, because if guys are celebrating together, you can feel the genuine connection. I don't get in there as much as I would like to. From the post games that you've been in the locker room this year, do you feel that it's connected?
I was just thinking about that and trying to compare it to being in there when things were good a couple of years ago, and then I remembered that, well, we were hardly even in there because we weren't allowed in the locker room for like a year and a half.
Because you might have given someone COVID.
Exactly,
yes,
exactly. There's definitely some good vibes in there. I mean, there's a lot of times where guys are talking back and forth, like, they're doing an interview and someone's a couple of locker stalls down trying to give him hell about something they're saying, and they're going back and forth. And it has never felt anywhere close. I think toxic is a pretty strong word. Would have crossed my mind that that's what's going on with this group. And it is really hard to say, even in that time spent. I'm trying to think of the Ramona. So I know that she said that on TV, and I didn't really hear a lot of the context around it. Was she saying that that was her impression from being in the locker room, or that's what she was being told by other people?
I believe that was what she was being told, and she had been in the locker room the Clippers game. Maybe they played Portland before that. I don't know when she was in the locker room.
That would make sense that she's LA based. Yeah. But I'm just wondering, well, without making it into a thing about reporting, whether that's where what she was going off of was just that, or if it was. Yeah, and I don't know that she would. Yeah, I would imagine she talks to sources.
That's what I was thinking. So I'm not gonna. This is what KD had to say. She's on TV. She's been around the NBA for years. Somebody's feeding her that information. It's my contention, though, that all workplaces are toxic, and you need to work your way back to fix them with good energy. Every day you walk into work, it's toxic because nobody wants to go to work. Everybody wants to chill. Fair? Joe, what's the score in the Warrior game?
Warriors are up 25-23.
Okay. See, you bring Joe up here. He gets to watch the game and hit the buttons, and we have a good time. But KD did say he wanted to stay, and he had it was on the table to go to Golden State. I do wonder what that would have looked like. We'll never know. Do you think the Warriors would have won a championship if KD would have joined them instead of Jimmy Butler? They could have worked a 3-team deal. We could have gotten Jimmy Butler here.
No, I don't think any of these old teams now are winning championships. And it could certainly be proven wrong here. And that Thunder team is really, really good.
Right.
The Celtics are still going to be good. The Cavs look really good and young and fun.
I still want no part of the Nuggets. In a big situation. Been there, done that. Maybe they'll get it done. Maybe they don't. I want no part of the Joker just confusing everybody about why he's the best basketball player ever.
Yeah, like what Jamal Murray shows up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just I was at the Suns T-Wolves game a week and a half ago, whenever that was. And it just felt the T-Wolves haven't been nearly as good as they were last year. And they're a different team with Julius Randle instead of Karl Anthony Towns. But in the second half, the way those guys swarmed,
it was stunning.
Anthony Edwards and McDaniels and
Naz Reid didn't even play, right?
Naz Reid didn't even play either.
Yeah.
But it was just like the playoffs all over again, where it was like the Suns can't match these guys' intensity and energy, the way they bring it defensively.
Yeah.
And, maybe I'm wrong, but that game in particular is what's sticking in my head as far as like the Suns and Warriors. I don't know that they can match these younger teams anymore.
All right. Here's KD on why he wanted to stay, though.
Because my teammates, my coaches, they're not the ones that's having these conversations. It's usually the front office and the people that I don't really see as much as my teammates and coaches. So, I can lock in on the task at hand and focus on the team and my coaching staff as much as I can, because that's the most important thing. And like I said, let the business take care of itself. And whoever called me and tell me I need to go, then I got to go. But if I can, like I said, I wanted to stay here and figure this thing out and see this thing through. So if I could get in the way of something like a trade, then why not? So like I said, like I've been saying, it's all a part of the game, and it's something that we got to accept and deal with and move forward. So we got a game tomorrow. I try to focus on.
Yeah, get in the way, and that's him confirming that he did not want to go to Golden State. Joe, are you happy with Jimmy Butler over KD? Do you feel like that increases your chances of winning a championship?
Well, KD is obviously a better player than Jimmy Butler. No one will dispute that. But I think what the Warriors need is what Jimmy brings in terms of a guy that can get a bucket, can get to the line, crash the boards, play decent defense, and bring that attitude that he brings. That obviously Draymond has that attitude, but he can go well off the edge, where I think Jimmy is able to bring it back a little bit. But just one game and part of a quarter in, I like what I see out of Jimmy in terms of fit with this team.
It's calculated crazy. He's
And
from
that-
Northwest Houston, so he's got a good education.
And all that KD is talking about, like, gosh, it must be weird. Is the assumption from the outside, coming back to practice, coming back to work when you know that the boss has tried to get rid of you, which is like even weirder when they actually trade you with the Lakers Hornets situation where they have to send them back.
Right. Is Nurk coming back?
I know that may or may not happen.
That's going to be really awkward.
But I guess it's interesting now, and they played a couple of games, but not without KD. So what this does look like, whether it eases any, pressure is not the right word, but for Bradley Beal, who was dangled out there plenty, for Kevin Durant, whether at some point this frees them up in any way or it lingers as an issue. I guess as I'm talking through it, maybe it frees Beal up in some way that he knows he's going to be here. I think if anything, it could only be problematic with Durant from this point forward.
So he did talk about this. He said he wanted to play through it, but he couldn't because he's been out with an ankle injury. So it did kind of drive him crazy. So here's his thoughts on the last week and kind of riding the roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah, I feel good. Looking forward to getting out there tomorrow, trying to help the team win and get back to doing something I love. It's terrible when you can't play. I think that was when I was able to get back to practice. I reflected a little bit in the last few days. I think I was more frustrated that I was injured and I couldn't play through the noise and the bullshit. And I had to sit and just listen to it, So usually your play can overshadow some of that stuff, but that's probably the most frustrating thing, so it's good to get back on the floor.
All right, and
what do you think
Greer
his screen time
McClune,
was?
Yeah. Greer and Charlie McClune, you're not allowed to talk like that. That's just it's a podcast. We're not regulated by the FCC. But yeah, I do wonder how much he's refreshing his screen to be like, what is going on? I mean, it's got to rock your whole world and your whole sense of comfort. Especially, I mean, Phoenix, Arizona is a very comfortable place to live, and I understand why
this
people
time
want
of
to
year,
stay here.
especially.
Right. I do wonder how this goes for the Suns. Is the pressure off now, or is it just kind of is what it is? Playoffs playing.
I lean more at this point. Just the basketball hasn't been great for a year and a half to begin with. No matter how good Kevin Durant and Devin Booker were at various times, have been at various times, individually, the team still hasn't been good. After this with Durant, would not shock me at all if this thing just goes up in flames now.
Right. I mean, we'll know a lot more when they play Memphis on Tuesday and then go to the Rockets. I mean, they've got the hardest schedule left in the league, according to many metrics. So, I mean, Durant's got to get back out there. I did really enjoy watching the game on Friday where Book had 41 against the Jazz and was coming downhill. I was like, this is what we like. I think we're just used to the dopamine here in Phoenix, 7 seconds or less. He's going to the hole, drive, kick. And I feel like Kevin Durant, as great as he is, and he's probably the guy I want to take the last second shot, he sometimes looks like he's playing chess when he has the ball, and it just doesn't go with what we've seen 7 seconds or less here and what we've been accustomed to with the Booker Suns run that went to the finals. It's just not a fit. And then you throw Beal in there, and it's three guys that kind of do the same thing, but Booker sort of does it best, but he needs help, and he's not getting the help that he needs.
I still can't understand how they haven't been better. Like, better than 500 basketball with these guys. I mean,
Right.
Book and Durant are going to go down as two all-time greats.
Right. Well, do we feel sorry for them? No, because this is the life they chose, and Kevin Durant even said so at Monday's practice.
People don't watch basketball games, so I kind of understood. Like I keep saying, man, it's just a part of the nature of the beast, man. People going to make shit up and create narratives and be biased and not use context. And I could cry all I want about that type of stuff, but nobody really cares at the end of the day, Life ain't fair, the game ain't fair. We just got to go out there and we make a decision to be in this life. If I ain't want to be here, I can just retire and quit and be well off, but this is life I chose.
I mean, it is. And I mean, as much as there's been made about him on Twitter, it almost seems like he's having fun on Twitter. And this is like the real KD being like, look, don't feel sorry for me. I'm making a lot of money here. You can boo me all you want. It's got to get to you as a human, but it just seems like He's at peace with it. Or at least he acted like he's at peace with it.
Yeah, I'm still not convinced. I think he wants to tell himself that he's at peace with it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm reading. But that he's not thrilled with the whole thing, as I was saying at the beginning, just for it to be something that he had to find out about. But I think he's maybe trying to talk himself into being at peace with it. And it's the business of basketball. And you've been around this long enough and you've seen it with so many other people that I think that's what he's trying to tell himself.
Well, does that go in with him not wanting the extension and wanting to play out his contract next year? Joe, do you think he's at peace with it?
That's something I think he is a guy that this does affect, and he's shown it time over time that it does get to him and bother him. I thought it was interesting watching some of this stuff that Windhorse on ESPN was speculating, like they wanted him to speculate something. He's like, I've learned not to get and say something for Kevin Durant just because you don't know what's going on in his head. And I've felt for him when he was a Warrior so much that like I almost hand wrote him a note and be like, hey, we love you, man. Like stay, don't listen to the noise. Like you're going up in the rafters, they're building a statue. Let's win 8 more of these. And like that's how much I thought like even he would appreciate a handwritten note from a fan just because he cares.
Would you write him not to stay in Phoenix just because you care about him as a person?
I just want to be happy. I've liked him because I followed him with James Harden on the Thunder.
Yeah.
And saw him play on the Thunder, and I was like, man, this guy is so good. And then that day he came to Warrior, like I was like, now I get to watch him play with my other favorite players. And so I've always appreciated Kevin, and he's a great player. And I think it's been tough to watch, especially because like highlights started coming out of those Warrior teams that, oh, this is coming back. And like he was so bouncy and so fun and did all this other stuff that I've saw every game that I don't see it here in Phoenix from him, and I feel bad for him.
Right. I think the Achilles injury took its toll. I mean, he's the
still
best
so
player
good.
in my college history. I mean, I'm going back to his days at Texas, his 1 year. It was incredible. I mean, I still want to watch it. And I think that you have seen like the Russell Westbrook, the MVP speech. Mom, you're the real MVP. Some real moments, some real great moments of Kevin Durant being somebody that you could tell your kids to look up to. And that's why the Twitter stuff is always, that's why I don't know if he's having fun.
I think he's having fun for the most part, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe he just doesn't, when you get to that level of success, maybe it just doesn't resonate.
He always says like he just enjoys talking ball. Right. And that's what he's doing a lot of the time on Twitter. Sometimes it's some sarcasm and just some mixing it up just to mix it up. But I think that's his favorite reason to spend so much time on there, is to just be involved in basketball conversation.
Well, does he deserve to be involved in basketball conversation with his organization? Because that was the big question, and this for me is the best answer and his last answer, whether or not he deserves as a player to have a say.
I feel like you deserve your heads up.
I don't deserve nothing. I got to work to earn and get everything. I don't deserve anything. I don't expect anything from any person. I'm not entitled to anything. I just go out there and do my job, and if I'm compensated for doing my job, cool. If not, I move on. That's how I kind of look at stuff. So I don't expect nothing from nobody. I don't expect them or feel entitled that they owe me anything. So I just got to focus on my job.
Sounds like a dad. It sounds like an old vet, and I don't know that you would sense that a lot of athletes feel like they are entitled to some level of communication. Is it just the contract? I mean, do we think that Kevin Durant is entitled to communication and some level of being put up on a pedestal?
I suppose he's not, and that's a humble way of looking at it from his perspective, whether it's 100% authentic or not. But I just don't think it helps if you want to sign him long term. If you want that extension, if you're the Suns, this situation can't possibly help that. But maybe they don't see that as a bad thing, just again, based on how a year and a half, at this point, almost 2 years of him being here has gone.
I heard in there he's okay with being traded this summer. That's what I heard. Joe, what did you hear in there?
No, it goes back to something I heard Troy Aikman say once, that the difference between Jimmy Johnson and someone else was, like a different coach, was that Jimmy Johnson said, I am going to treat, he said this to the players, I'm going to treat my best players different than I treat the lower end of the roster. And I think some players deserve that. And the NBA is just a little different because the players have so much control. And here's a guy who's forced his way out of 3 teams actually, if you count the Thunder. So I think, and like Nick said, like if you want him to sign long term, like you should have an open conversation about it and be like, look, we want to bring in Jimmy, we want Kuminga, we want these picks, and to do that, Brad isn't letting go of his no trade clause. We're gonna have to let go of you. We feel bad about it, but this is the best for our franchise, and have that conversation. And whether he said, no, I want to stay here, and they're like, okay, you'll stay here. Or what I heard is that him and Steph had a conversation, and Steph told the Warriors, like, yeah, he doesn't want to come here. Like, let's back off at him. And Steph gave him that levity, which I find interesting too.
Well, for one, I like watching Kevin Durant play basketball. I don't like watching him play for the Suns because of what we've seen. But I'm going to enjoy the next, we have 30 games left, because I don't know that he's going to be here for the opener next year. That's just vibe check. And I haven't been in the locker room game, but this has got to turn around fast. And
right,
stranger things have happened, but with this schedule in front of them, Memphis, Houston, we gonna see, and you're gonna see it on Arizona's Family Sports, which is the best part in the Extra Point postgame.
It would be very surprising to me if they were still standing in the Western Conference semifinals, that they got through a round of the playoffs. Like, things would have to massively turn around from this point forward. But yeah, I think we'll have a much better idea. Let's say mid to late March.
Right. And they've got the All-Star break coming up, so they can heal up. And they go to Austin to take on the Spurs, and I can't go because I have an air bubble in my eye. I really wanted to go to that one.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. I don't think there'll be other games where Kevin Durant goes back to Austin. Joe, who has a better finish this year? Let's finish with this. What's the score in the Warrior game? And who has a better finish this year, the Warriors or the Suns?
Warriors are up 39-32, 8:40 left in the second. I think, I'm going to say the Warriors just because they're trending in the right direction. They got that love back. Jimmy got that love back. Steph was dancing, and he went through his flurry again, a Curry flurry. And the vibes are good one game into the Jimmy Butler era, which could obviously change in a heartbeat. But it's 30 games to figure all these teams bunched towards the bottom to try to get out of the play-in. 30 games to figure it out, and it's going to be an interesting ride, I think. But I think the Warriors are trending in the right direction.
Right. Yep. Well, we're here to sort it all out. It was a fun conversation, a fun day at the old 5G Center.
I mean, it was super interesting. KD is never not interesting, and as soon as he finished, I said, I was like, we could do that whole entire interview scrum session just in our show tonight. It was that good.
Well, that's why we got the Extra Point podcast to break it down, and as much of that in the Extra Point television show. Nick, you were out of Diamondbacks today. Just real quick, new first baseman. What do you think?
Josh Naylor. I think that I just looked at it. If I have this right, the last 13 seasons, the Diamondbacks had Paul Goldschmidt or Christian Walker at first base.
Man.
That's a really good run of first baseman. He said that he does not see it as a massive challenge. He tipped his cap to everything that Christian Walker is and everything he's been here, but he didn't say that he saw it as some big challenge to fill his shoes to replace him. I think it will be.
Yeah.
But he seemed like a very nice Canadian who wants to marry average and power. So 2 years ago, he had like 308 last season, but only 17 homers. Last season, his average was down to like 243, but he had 31 homers and he was an all-star. Now he wants to be both.
That's a sign of the times.
But now he wants to hit 300 and hit 30 homers.
All right, we'll see if he can do it here. Great job at the WM Phoenix Open. If you didn't see the post-game show, Nick King crushed it. And that's the Extra Point Podcast. We'll see you on the air tonight at 10:35. The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.